This is the Yashica Lynx 5000. I bought this for £5 online. I don't have the best hopes for it. This isn't a guarantee that we're going to fix this thing up to fully working condition. As you can see, it's in pretty poor condition. It's got a lot of scratches and scuffs and corrosion. Yeah, so it's not been looked after. Very dirty. I think it's got a lot of problems. I had a quick look at it, but yeah, I mean, you can hear something rattling around in there, and I think that's in the viewfinder. So that's definitely something we're going to need fixing. I mean, this video really is just for anyone who's thinking of repairing a camera, who might be thinking it's a bit of a daunting job. I myself, I'm just a hobbyist really. I've got a few cameras, most of which I've bought in not as bad a condition as this, but they've usually had a problem or a fault with them, and I've had to repair them to some degree. It's a good way to save a bit of money as well. If you're quite happy to get a screwdriver out and give it a try yourself, you really can save yourself a bit of money and get a bit of satisfaction out of knowing that you've got a fully working camera that you've repaired yourself. So we're really just going to go through the first steps really of diagnosing what we're going to need to do here before we start whipping out the screwdrivers and taking it all apart. Bit of information about this camera itself. The Yashica Lynx 5000 came out about 1964, was the precursor to the very popular Yashica Electro cameras. It's quite a decent mid-range camera. It's got an f1.8 lens, nice and quick. Not up there with the Yashica Lynx 1.4, but this would have been, you know, a pretty decent mid-range sort of camera to have. Got an uncoupled light meter, so anyone who's not aware of what that means, it has a little dial on the top that tells you whether your shot's going to be over or underexposed, and you activate that by manually pressing a button here, and then a little needle in here will go either over or underexposed. And then from there it's up to you to pick the right settings on the lens barrel. You've got your shutter speed, your aperture. So it's uncoupled, so it has no linkage at all to the settings you put in there, so there's no automatic sort of setting. It's basically just there as a guide to tell you whether your shot's going to be overexposed or underexposed, and it's up to you to fiddle with the dials until that works. So I mean, that's one of the problems I've noticed immediately. We can't turn the shutter speed dial at all, so that's going to need to be looked at. The aperture one kind of moves. Yeah. And I don't think any of these Yashica Lynx models had stepped settings, so this dial just spins freely. There's no clicking, but I think that's normal because my Yashica Lynx 14 does that. A quick test of the winder. Now if you're dealing with one that's got a stuck winder, don't force it. There's no need to be putting a lot of force into this. There's a lot of cogs and mechanisms in here that won't agree with you if you try and force anything. If it's resisting, then just leave it. There's something that's likely to have jammed in there, whether it's dust or dirt or a broken mechanism. You're just going to make it worse by trying to force things. So yeah, it winds. It appears to fire, but I don't know if you can see there. I'll try and get a clear shot of it. But the shutter just stays open and then closes as you wind it. So that's going to need to be looked at as well. So we can add that to the list of problems. The lens, I can't tell what condition that's in. It's got a lot of grime on it. It could be scratched. You could have loads of fungus in it. So the first steps really, I think, give it a cursory clean. We're not going to go mad. We just want to get most of the lumps of muck off, so we're not going to get it all over our hands, and we can assess it a bit more. So we'll move on to that. Now when you're cleaning this, there's no sort of right or wrong really. I use some anti-static cleaner, and this is pretty good at getting most muck off. It's a sort of foam formula, so you just spray it onto a cloth and get a bit on there. You can see that foams up. And we're just going to give it a quick wipe over the bodywork. Just try and get some of this muck off. Again, we're not looking for perfection here. This is all going to happen when we start taking it apart. That's a perfect opportunity to do a proper clean job on it. But for now, we're just trying to get the big chunks off. And with the lens you want to be a bit more careful. Try and use a nice clean part of the cloth there. A quick wipe, again, not too harsh. You could have all sorts of grains of sand or dust in there. You don't want to be wiping that around in there, so just with a nice clean edge of the cloth, just. But we might be looking at some fungus in there, particularly under that first element, so we'll probably have to take that apart and have a look. So the list is adding up, but this is a worst case scenario. I mean, it's very unlikely if you're looking for a camera that you're going to be buying online that you're going to, particularly if it's your first time, you're going to go for one that's going to have this many problems on it. But hopefully we can just show you how to do some of the basics, really. The focus moves quite freely. Like I said, I don't think we can really see anything in there because it's just jiggling around. So all around and underneath the winder that we can't really get off, so that's going to need something a bit tougher, I think. And again, some of this just isn't coming off as easily, so there might be a bit of corrosion to the bodywork. It's not too bad. And this is the sensor here. This is the CDS sensor that takes the light reading, which you then get in the top there. And that's probably going to be one of the other things we're just going to test next. I'm not holding my breath that this is actually going to be working, but we'll give it a look. So, battery compartment's quite clean. Surprising, it's probably the only bit that's clean on this camera. And metal contacts are nice and corrosion free, so that's a good start. Now this camera takes a battery that I don't think you can buy anymore, but you can get these brass adapters, and you can pop a standard LR44 battery in there. I think this is actually an SR44, so it's a silver oxide, I think, battery, so it will give you a constant power output until it finally dies, whereas LR44s gradually degrade, so you're going to start getting really inaccurate readings as the battery starts to run out. So we're just going to pop this in here. And again, you don't really want to be sticking a coin in there to tighten it. You only really want to be using a coin if you need to undo it and it's quite tight. Particularly in this case, we're only testing. So I'm going to point it at a light spot and see if it comes under. I mean, it's sitting at under anyway, the needle at the top there. If that's very clear. If we point it to a... I'll just change the aperture to f1.8, and actually you can see there, let's try and point this at the other camera. Come on. We have movement, so the meter is one of the few things that's actually working on here, so that's great. So we can tick that one off the list. And that's not a great job I like doing anyway, because that involves soldering, and I'm terrible at soldering. So again, I seem to have got this a bit stuck, so I'll just use a coin just to gently undo it. The only other thing we haven't checked is inside, so just pop the top up. No, it isn't one of those actually. It's got a release at the bottom. You just slide that along and push it in, and that pops the back off. And we've got a loose ASA DIN table in here, so that needs to be glued back on there. That'll be a simple job. So in here is where all your light seals would go. This is just a rubber seal that goes around the top and the bottom, sometimes along the edges around here as well, to keep the light out. They are pretty much always going to be corroded and will need replacing on any camera you get. They do degrade very quickly, and it's just a good idea if you get a new camera. You don't know when they were last changed or how light tight they are, so it's just worth changing those anyway, and we'll do that in another video. Good opportunity to look through the lens, considering it's stuck open anyway, so we can get a good look in there and see what kind of grime we've got. We're gonna have to get that open anyway. We're gonna have to take the lens element out just to look at what kind of fungus and dirt we've got in there. Looking like it's a little bit pitted. We may not be able to recover all of it, but we might be able to get it to a usable position. So I'm just gonna have a quick look through the viewfinder, and yeah, so there's a piece of glass in there which shows the outline of the frame of the shot, and that's just loose and they're rattling around, and that's usually just glued in place with a bit of epoxy or something. So we'll have to take the top cover off anyway, because it's all going to need cleaning. It's all a bit cloudy in there. Give all that a good clean, and obviously work out what's going on with this shutter mechanism. But yeah, there's no guarantee that we're even going to get this working. It's going to be a little adventure for us to go through, and I'm going to try and sort of cover each one of the issues in a different video. So this first one is really just sort of the initial steps, what you'd be doing if you just get it out of the box, just inspect what needs to be done with it. And yeah, we'll leave it there for now, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Thanks.